Hi everyone, welcome to my escape. I'm very comfy right now, and you should be too, because today we're in for a rant, okay? When I filmed my June wrap-up, I said I was going to do a Voyeur rant, because I hated that book so much. And then I just didn't feel like creating that kind of negativity. But now is different, because I'm in a very negative mood, and this is the perfect time to make my rant. If you're not familiar with it, Voyeur is a contemporary romance erotica, basically. So there's age gap in it, student teacher, sex club, kink, overcoming like a past of sexual abuse and trauma, money problems, toxic family, all that fun stuff. The premise is there is a college girl, she's 21, she got a student loan to pay for her schooling, and then right before school starts, her parents cash her check, steal the money from her, and now she's broke and she can't afford school, and she's having to pay this loan back with money that she didn't have to begin with. And now she's gonna have to pay that loan back with money she doesn't have, and pay her tuition with also money she doesn't have. So she's back into a corner. She doesn't want to give up school. She doesn't want to move home, obviously, to the parents that literally stole from her. So she gets a job at a sex club that's not a sex club. So as like a customer, you can go and you like type into an iPad what you want to see, and then there's actors that like perform these sex acts behind like a glass, except they're just faking it. That to me is a sex club, because there's only so much you can fake before it's like basically, you know? So she gets a job there because it's going to pay her bills. She attracts the attention of this one customer who, when she begins school, realizes is her prof. Okay, he didn't know originally, classes hadn't started yet, and then he did know, and they kind of hit things off. Okay, this was my first student teacher. That maybe could be my issue because I'm in college, and none of my profs have I ever been like, yes. So the whole concept of the student teacher eludes me, and I'm just like, I can't relate to this. This doesn't seem interesting. This is like a little too close to my like real life. It's losing that whole like escapism. Like I don't want to read about her studying. So that could be part of it. Okay, if you like student teacher, maybe you'll feel differently about this book. Now, what really gets me going is the male main character. Okay, he's 29. Okay, he's an adult. He's a fully grown man, and I understand he has trauma, and I understand he's dealing with a history of sexual abuse, and I get that. Okay, but the way he treats her and the excuses made by the author for the way he treats her is ridiculous, and honestly gets me so frustrated, because if you want to be a dark romance, write a dark romance and make it very clear. Don't disguise super toxic, very manipulative, abusive behavior in a contemporary romance as just be like, oh, well, it's okay because he's dealing with his own trauma. It is not okay. It is not okay. He is a man in this huge position of power. He's her professor. He ends up being her employer because she gets a part-time job with him, okay? He's her customer at work. He's 8 years older than her. He's in all of the positions of power. So this is Frankie, the dog I'm babysitting, and it's really hard to do an angry rant with such a cute face in front of you. Yes, you're so adorable. So we're gonna see how this goes. Just because you have your own trauma does not give you the excuse to take it out on everyone around you, okay? He should have been in therapy. He should have been confronting these issues, but instead he drinks them away, and he gets very possessive, and he gets very jealous, and he just drinks and drinks and drinks and drinks, and then starts like exhibiting signs of like aggression and like abuse and stuff, and like losing his mind and being unable to control his temper and accosting her at work. Getting ahead of myself. So the male main character has this history of abuse, and he's never dealt with it. Okay, everyone works at their own pace, that's fine. But then he starts a relationship with his student, which is already like, no, but like taboo. Okay, you're reading a taboo romance, you're expecting it to be a little bit taboo. My issue is that he expected this like 19 or 20-year-old girl, I can't remember how old she is, to just fix him, to just figure it out, to just fix all of his trauma, which she didn't really know about, to just put all this weight on her. Like he just trauma dumps so heavily, and I understand it's a bit of like exposition for the reader, but he just trauma dumps so heavily on her and then just relies on her to just be like, he's just like, well, I don't really like when other people touch me, but I'm for some reason fine when you do it, so you're just gonna do it forever now. Like, there was so much manipulation going on in that sense. Like, it was very much of like, I'm not okay without you, so you can't leave me type of thing. And I hated that for her, as if she didn't have enough going on in her own life. Now she's having to deal with this man child who refuses to process his own trauma. Which is, again, fine, but then you don't get to go and put that on other people. So then one of the main conflicts in the story is that he is now angry that she's working at the sex club, and he can't deal with his jealousy or his possessiveness, and he can't deal with it. I'm like, you literally met her at a sex club. She's been very upfront about her economics and her situation and how she needs to be able to provide for herself, and it's inherent to her personality because she can't depend on anybody else, and she doesn't want to, and money has wrecked every good relationship she's ever had in her life. So she wants to provide for herself, and this is really the only way she's capable of doing it at the time. And he doesn't accept this. He doesn't really like absorb and understand what she's saying. He just goes, but we're dating. You can't work in a sex club, but we're dating. And she's like, nothing actually happens. It's also my job. It's also how you met me. It's also how I'm able to live where I am. And he's like, but I'm a big man, baby, and I can't deal with it, and I can't process it, even though that's where I literally met you and knew going in 100% of the time, this is what you did for a living, this is what you did for a job. But he just constantly throws it in her face, and he's so mean about it, and so aggressive about it, and so manipulative about it, and she just makes her feel awful when this is literally the only, like, she's starving. Like, she can't afford lunch. She's literally starving. She is barely scraping by, and he just wants her to walk away from this job. And she's like, I can't. And then he throws in the, well, I'll just give you money. And then she's like, well, no, because then I would feel like a prostitute and I'm not a sex worker, which again is up for debate. But she doesn't want to be a sex worker for her boyfriend. And she's like, and I've already told you that money has been the like downfall of every relationship I've ever had, so I'm not gonna have my boyfriend paying me. And he was just like, but I can't deal with this, so fix it. And I'm like, you're literally not listening to her at all. Like, you're not taking into account her economic situation and the fact that you met her at the sex club, so it was never a secret. It's not like this came out of nowhere. You knew this from the get-go, and you can't deal enough with your own issues and your own, like, possessive anger that you're putting this on her, and you're just trying to manipulate her and gaslight her, and it was so awful. And, like, I just wanted to punch him the whole book. But the book progresses, and he just becomes more and more of this alcoholic because he doesn't know how else to deal with anything, because he's never dealt with anything. And again, he just trauma dumps on her, but he's getting more and more like alcoholic. And then as he drinks, he's getting more aggressive, and he shows up to her place of work like plastered. And I'm like, huge red flags, like huge red flags. You can't just accost your significant other at work while you're hammered and think that's an okay thing to do. Like, so out of line, so beyond anything. And it's like the author then goes and like makes excuses for his behavior, and it's never really dealt with, and he's never really had any consequences. And I'm just like, this is so awful. Like, if you're gonna write that, write it as the author, as if you know how awful it is. Don't try to hide it as in like, oh, but he's just hurting. I don't care. He's a grown man. Deal with this, because your behavior is scary, threatening, gaslighting, awful, toxic, beyond anything. Just stop, okay? You should not be in a relationship right now. You need to deal with your own shit. And then it just goes on, and they end up breaking up because she won't give up her job and he just won't deal with it like a grown up. So they break up, and then he has this like whole thought of like their future. I can't remember if this was before or after they broke up, but he's like either talking or monologuing in his head about like their future, and nothing is actually about the girl. It's about what she could do for him, and about how, you know, he's better with her touch, and it, you know, she heals his trauma, which is so bad and not a thing. Huge red flag there. But how she just brings all this joy and life back into his life and all this other stuff. And I'm like, but nothing is actually about her. It's just that you found someone you're comfortable with. But like, it could have been anybody. Like, nothing was specific to her. Nothing was specific to her personality, her needs, her goals, her anything. It was just like, oh, but I'm comfy now, so this is the future for us. And I was like, what does she get out of this other than being manipulated? because I can't see anything. Like, she is literally starving. And then because of this, she feels so bad that she's like lost this guy she loves and like all of everything, that she ends up having to leave her job. So in her head, like before she goes to him, she's like, it can work, we can make this work. I'll just have like a lot of debt and I won't really eat that much. She's already not eating that much. She's below the poverty line. Like, and then I found this other part-time job which like doesn't pay me as well as like the job I had, but at least it'll be something. When I'll sell my car. And I'm like, oh great, so you're losing your only means of escape and transportation. They're reducing your freedom. You're giving up your job and all your coworkers and the friends you made there, because he's definitely not going to allow you to have friends from there if he can't even figure out you working there. You're becoming more in debt and you're not able to afford food. But it's okay because it was your fault that you guys broke up because of your pride. It was 100% not. He just gaslit you. He's a terrible, terrible guy. He needs to figure out his own issues. He can't just put this all on you. But anyways, that's what she does. He goes to his parents and he's like, hey, like, yeah, like I was really interested in this girl, but it's not gonna work out. And parents are like, oh no, why? You haven't shown interest in anybody. He's like, well, because I was mentally abusive and like really toxic towards her. So we broke up. And then the mom literally goes, oh, but she's, knowing the age gap and that he's in the position of authority, goes, oh, but she's an adult. She can make her own decisions. You shouldn't make that decision for her. And I was like, your son literally just came to you saying he's abusive and he's abusing somebody like under his power. And your response was, she's an adult. She can figure it out. What type of trash advice is that? That scares me about the world. Because how on earth do you think that a son could go to their mother and say that and the mother wouldn't immediately be like, oh, maybe you should deal with your own stuff, or oh, maybe it was a good decision to leave this relationship where you have admitted to being abusive? Why on earth would you go, no, it's not your fault you're abusive. If she thinks she can deal with it, then she can. Insanity. Literally insanity. Like, are you kidding me? That's your takeaway from the conversation? Dear Lord, dear Lord. And then he goes back to her after his like 2-week vacation where he just feels like he's fixed. And he's like, okay, but maybe I'll go to therapy now, which is great, okay? But you should start on that before you re-enter this relationship, because he's like, well, I'm just ready for the relationship now. And I was like, a 2-week vacation does not solve everything. And my last note for this book is, so now, instead of having an income, she is starving and barely making ends meet to accommodate the fragile ego of a man-child who thinks he's fixed after a 2-week vacation. The book was so messed up. So messed up. There was not a redeeming quality about it. I mean, maybe the girl, because she was really going through it and trying her best to like make ends meet. But like all the supporting characters were just like, oh, let him be toxic. Oh, you're overreacting. I'm sorry. Even her friend, I'm just to go back on this, but like even her friend, when she came to her friend and like explained the situation and why they broke up, she was like, the friend was like, so you broke up because of your pride? What? Literally? Do you hear yourself? Like, do you hear yourself? I just couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. There was not a single redeeming quality about that book. The only reason I finished it was because it's a standalone series and I've read 3 others in the series and I really liked 2 of them and really didn't like the 3rd. So I was like, maybe this will like really swing the series for me. But no, I hated it. It was awful. It was so toxic. And you can write toxic. You just have to acknowledge as an author that it's toxic. You call it a dark romance. You put trigger warnings on it. Or you just, I don't know, do better and just write it as if the reader would know that it's toxic. You don't write it in a way where you're trying to make it like, I don't know, like it's okay, like his behavior's okay, trying to justify it and be like, well, he's traumatized. Okay, deal with it. Or don't, but then don't put it on other people and don't be in this relationship. It's insane to me. It took me like 5 months to get through because it would honestly make me so angry while reading it that I'd have to put it down and not pick it up for a little bit. That's my Voyeur rant. Hope you enjoy it. Let me know down below if you've read the series or read the book. I really enjoy when I have a rant because it lets me get some aggression out And if I read a book and really hate it, I need to get that aggression out. Comment below if you've read the book or your thoughts on my rant, because stuff like this drives me up the wall, and this is not the only book like it. It's really just the one that stood out to me as like unbelievable. And the puppy's back, hence the ears. But if you want to see more of me, I'll attach my Goodreads and my Instagram in the comments down below. I post videos every Friday and sometimes on Tuesday when I'm feeling it. Usually they're a lot more positive, but ring that bell for notifications, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Bye!